This week from the global lane, the most important trip of Donald Trump's presidency so far. The American billionaire president takes his case against North Korean nukes to Asia. We'll talk to reporters Lucille Talusan and Mengfi in Vietnam. Rohingya, they're victims of ethnic cleansing in Myanmar. Who shares the blame? On the home front, another shooting massacre, this time wiping out much of the congregation of a tiny Texas church. And I'll drive it home on guns. As Americans mourn the victims of the Texas church shooting, the big push resumes for tougher gun laws. Is that the answer to prevent more massacres? And it's all right here, right now, from the global lane. It was the most important trip so far of Donald Trump's presidency, not only for the United States, but also the world. Mr. Trump's first stop in Asia, Japan. After that, he traveled to Seoul, where he delivered an historic speech before the South Korean parliament. First, he explained what is at stake on the Korean peninsula. And then he said he had a message for North Korea and the nuclear weapons ambitions of dictator Kim Jong-un.
It is our responsibility and our duty to confront this danger together, because the longer we wait, the greater the danger grows and the fewer the options become. And to those nations that choose to ignore this threat, or worse still, to enable it, the weight of this crisis is on your conscience. I also have come here to this peninsula to deliver a message directly to the leader of the North Korean dictatorship. The weapons you are acquiring are not making you safer. They are putting your regime in grave danger. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face. North Korea is not the paradise your grandfather envisioned. It is a hell that no person deserves. Yet, despite every crime you have committed against God and man, you are ready to offer, and we will do that. We will offer a path to a much better future. It begins with an end to the aggression of your regime, a stop to your development of ballistic missiles, and complete, verifiable, and total denuclearization.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, gone was the American president's harsh rhetoric of the past. Those fire and fury warnings. This was a solemn speech where he presented the threat North Korea poses to the region and the world. He said the United States is ready to defend the vital interests of its people and allies from cruel tyrants. But he was also positive and talked about the kind of Korean peninsula that America and its friends envision.
Together we dream of a Korea that is free, a peninsula that is safe, and families that are reunited once again. We dream of highways connecting north and south, of cousins embracing cousins, and this nuclear nightmare replaced with the beautiful promise of peace. Until that day comes, we stand strong and alert. Our eyes are fixed to the north and our hearts praying for the day when all Koreans can live in freedom. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Korean people. Thank you very much.
From South Korea, the president traveled to Beijing, where he visited the Forbidden City and met with Chinese President Xi. He wants China to be tougher on North Korea, but the Chinese insisted they're already honoring the economic sanctions that were imposed against the Hermit Kingdom. As for trade relations, last year during the presidential campaign, Mr. Trump said the Chinese were cheating on trade and placing Americans at a disadvantage. He toned it down a bit in Beijing. And Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross even signed some trade agreements with the Chinese. Ross said addressing the imbalance in trade has been the central focus of talks with China. U.S. and China signed trade agreements totaling $9 billion, affecting energy, transportation, and agricultural industries. And after China, it was on to Vietnam and the Philippines. So just before Mr. Trump arrived in Vietnam, I talked to CBN Asia reporters Mengfi and Lucille Talusan, who were in Da Nang. Lucille and Mengfi, thank you so much for joining us from Da Nang, Vietnam. And Lucille, we'll start with you. You were last in Vietnam 8 years ago, so what's different now, Lucille? How has it changed?
Oh, it's a big change, especially on the roads. Before, 8 years ago, it was like crossing a sea of motorcycles, because people rode on bikes and motorcycles and rickshaws, and you can barely see a car on the street. But now the streets are congested with cars, and, sometimes there's heavy traffic and a lot of buildings and a lot of construction going on. So Vietnam has really progressed, in the past 8 years.
And Mengfi, I know this was your first trip to Vietnam, so what has impressed you the most about the country?